We all have that exact same daydream, don't we? You buy a ticket, the numbers line up, and suddenly you never have to set an alarm clock again. You are private island rich. But what happens when handing someone a giant novelty check is actually the worst thing that could possibly happen to them? Today, we are counting down the top 10 biggest lottery tragedies. Grab your notepads because this is a masterclass in what not to do. Number 10, Andrew Jack Whitaker. Let's kick things off with a guy who was already playing on easy mode. Andrew was a highly successful construction executive who already had a cool $17 million in the bank. You'd think a guy with that portfolio would know how to protect his cash. Well, fate has a twisted sense of humor. In 2002, Andrew hit a gargantuan $315 million Powerball jackpot. But instead of riding off on a yacht, his life turned into absolute chaos. He became an ATM for local criminals, famously leaving $500,000 in a briefcase in his car at a strip club. Shockingly, it was stolen. Through terrible luck, lawsuits, and robberies, he was completely broke within 4 years, losing his original $17 million too. Number 9. Callie Rogers. Back in 2003, 16-year-old Callie was living in foster care and making minimum wage as a checkout girl. Then boom, she became the youngest ever lottery winner, sitting on $2.3 million. Handing a teenager millions of dollars is basically like giving a toddler a bazooka. It is absolutely going to make a mess. With zero financial role models, Callie blew her fortune exactly how you'd expect. She threw wild parties, bought designer tracksuits, and spent hundreds of thousands on plastic surgery. She soon realized that buying expensive drinks for strangers just attracted fake friends looking to sell stories to tabloids. Today, the millions are gone. But ironically, she claims she is happier without the cash. She now campaigns heavily to raise the legal lottery age so no other teenager goes through the ringer. Number 8. Jane Park. Speaking of teenagers who shouldn't have been handed a giant check, let's talk about Jane Park. In 2013, 17-year-old Jane was making just $9 an hour at an office job. For her birthday, she bought her first Euro Millions ticket and accidentally won $1.3 million. Did she invest it in an index fund? Of course not. Her first purchase was a garish Louis Vuitton handbag, setting the tone for her fortune. She bought luxury cars, five-star vacations, and endless cosmetic surgery. Eventually, the endless parties stopped and isolation set in. Without having to work, she realized she had zero purpose. She even publicly threatened to sue the lottery for ruining her life. Fortunately, her mom had the incredible foresight to lock away some winnings in a secret savings account, proving moms are the ultimate financial advisors. Number 7. Keith Goff. Just in case you thought only naive teenagers made terrible financial choices, let me introduce you to 58-year-old Keith Goff. Keith was a happily married baker when he hit a UK National Lottery jackpot worth a staggering $12 million. Instead of enjoying a quiet retirement with his wife, Keith decided to live like a rock star. He splurged on fleets of fast cars, blew mountains of cash betting on horse racing, and bought a ridiculously expensive private box at the Aston Villa Football Club. To keep the party going, he developed a heavy drinking habit. The addiction completely took over, and his wife had no choice but to pack her bags. Broke, alone, and swindled, Keith soon passed away from a heart attack. Friends suspect he simply died of a broken heart. Number 6. Justin Ryder. Justin's jackpot wasn't quite as massive, taking home a respectable $600,000. But what he did with that money makes him an absolute legend for all the wrong reasons. Justin's dream wasn't a shiny Ferrari. He had recently watched the comedy movie Austin Powers, Goldmember, and he decided he wanted exactly what the villain had. I am not making this up. Justin wanted a gold member of his own. So, he spent his winnings on gold paint from a hardware store, went home, and happily dipped his nether regions straight into the can. When it didn't look shiny enough, he bought expensive actual gold paint and re-dipped without washing off the first coat. His fatal mistake. The first batch was heavy lead-based paint. The toxic ingredients absorbed into his bloodstream through his sensitive skin. He was found dead shortly after from lead poisoning. Always read the warning labels on your hardware store purchases. Number 5. John McGuinness. In 1997, John McGuinness was working a modest job as a hospital porter when he hit a UK jackpot worth $16.4 million. Back in the 90s, that was buy a private island money. At first, John wasn't a total wild card. He bought a few luxuries and helped out his family, but then he decided to follow his ultimate passion, football. He spent $4.9 million to become the principal shareholder of Livingston Football Club. What he didn't do was hire a competent accountant to read the fine print. By buying the team, he unknowingly accepted personal responsibility for all of the club's pre-existing massive debts. The team was basically a financial black hole. Within 12 years, the club's crushing debt swallowed every single cent of his lottery winnings, plus all the personal savings he had built up beforehand. Number 4. John Roberts. John Roberts truly experienced the highest of highs and the absolute lowest of lows. Before his win, John was living in cramped government housing, desperately struggling to pay basic rent. Imagine the euphoria when he suddenly won over $5 million. Naturally, the newly minted millionaire started buying every luxury item he could point a finger at. Mansions, cars, watches, you name it. But his real downfall came courtesy of two so-called friends. These guys approached John with what they promised was a foolproof business investment. Excited by the prospect of starting a company with his buddies, John handed over the remainder of his fortune. Shockingly, they weren't completely honest. They took his millions, completely fabricated the business deal, and vanished. 3 short years later, John was completely broke and living out of a mobile home. Number 3. Marie Holmes. Marie Holmes was a single mom juggling 3 jobs just to put food on the table. In 2015, her life changed forever when she won a massive $188 million share of a Powerball jackpot. You'd think this was her ultimate fairy tale ending, but it was an absolute nightmare. First, her own family turned on her, accusing her of stealing the ticket. Then, she was sued by her own church pastor for allegedly not giving the congregation enough money. But the jaw-dropping kicker? She spent an eye-watering $21 million repeatedly bailing her boyfriend, an alleged gang member, out of jail. Yes, $21 million on bail money for one single guy. Despite her massive cash injections, he still went to federal prison. And to thank her, he sued her from behind bars for selling some expensive gifts she had bought him. Today, Marie's massive fortune is entirely wiped out. Number 2. Tonda Lynn Dickerson. This story starts at a Waffle House. A tight-knit group of waitresses decided to pool their tip money to buy lottery tickets. The deal was simple. If one wins, everybody shares. Well, a ticket won a staggering $10 million jackpot. The only problem? Tonda was physically holding the winning ticket and suddenly forgot what the word share meant. Her furious colleagues sued her, but in a shocking twist, the courts ruled in Tonda's favor since there was no written contract. Then her boss sued her, claiming she verbally promised to buy him a truck. That went to the Supreme Court and Tonda won again. She was completely untouchable, until she tried to outsmart the IRS. Tonda set up a corporation and gifted shares to her family, completely unaware those shares were subject to a massive gift tax. The IRS audited her to oblivion, slapping her with a $1 million tax bill. At least Uncle Sam got his cut. Number 1. Denise Rossi. Denise Rossi might just be the absolute poster child for instant karma. One random day, she quietly won $1.3 million in the California lottery. For most people in a 25-year marriage, this would be a time to pop champagne with your spouse. Not Denise. She kept the multi-million-dollar win a total secret, immediately filed for divorce from her husband, Thomas, and aggressively pushed the paperwork through the courts. Thomas was totally blindsided, having no idea why his wife was suddenly rushing to leave him. Her flawless heist hit a massive snag 2 years later when a misdirected piece of mail about the payout accidentally ended up at Thomas's apartment. He took her straight back to court. Because she maliciously hid the lottery winnings, it was legally classified as fraud. As a penalty for her extreme greed, the judge awarded 100% of the $1.3 million to her ex-husband. She completely blew up her marriage and walked away with absolutely nothing. So, what's the moral of the story here? If you ever happen to beat the odds and win the lottery, maybe don't dip yourself in gold paint, don't buy a failing sports team, and definitely don't try to hide it from a family court judge. If you guys enjoyed this wild ride, smash that like button and subscribe. Until next time, stay smart and stay lucky.